She made $6,000 off my work. $6,000. And then she blocked my number. For 3 months, I watched the sales roll in every single day from a landing page I built with my own hands, my own words, my own late nights. And every single day, not 1 cent came my way. But here's the thing about karma. Sometimes it needs a little help. And when her website mysteriously crashed at exactly the wrong moment, let's just say, I chose my words very carefully. If you've ever poured your heart into your work, trusted someone to hold up their end of the deal, and been left holding nothing but silence, this story is for you. Hit that like button, subscribe if you're new, and buckle up. Because what happens next is the kind of justice that makes you want to stand up and slow clap at your screen. Let's get into it. You're young, you're hungry, you're trying to break into a competitive industry with nothing but raw talent, a laptop, and the desperate energy of someone who has absolutely nothing to lose. That was me, 8 years ago. I was fresh into copywriting, the art of writing words that make people buy things. No big clients, no portfolio to speak of, just a genuine belief that I was good at this and a willingness to prove it to anyone who'd give me a shot. So when a woman reached out needing a landing page for her online jewelry store, I said yes, fast. Now, full transparency, the store was built around what I'll generously describe as Elven mystical energy symbols. Esoteric crystals, ancient sigils, the kind of jewelry that comes wrapped in a velvet pouch with a card that says something like, "Align your frequency." Not exactly my world. But you know what? Irrelevant. A client is a client. A brief is a brief. She was the kind of person who communicated in long, meandering paragraphs, full of references to vibrational energy and sacred geometry. Enthusiastic, dreamy, vague in that very specific way that, looking back, should have been my first warning sign. But I was optimistic, I was eager, and honestly, I was a little bit impressed by my own boldness when I agreed to a pure performance deal. No upfront payment, nothing guaranteed, just a handshake agreement, well, an email agreement, that I'd earn 5% of every sale that came through the landing page I built. In my head, I ran the numbers. Her store was small. If I could pull in maybe $6,000 in revenue over a few months, that's $300, maybe more, for 2 days of work. For a kid still building his portfolio, that felt like a jackpot. So I got to work. I wrote the copy. I sweated over every headline, every product description, every call to action. I built the whole page inside her WordPress site. Clean layout, compelling flow, the kind of structure that gently walks a stranger's eyes from curiosity all the way to add to cart. And then I waited. She launched some Facebook ads pointing traffic at the page, and I watched. Day 1, $120 in sales. I blinked at my screen. Okay, not bad. Day 2, $200. My pulse ticked up. Day 3, $150. Day 4, $360. I remember staring at that number with this ridiculous grin spreading across my face, the kind you get when something you believed in actually works. There's this electric, almost disbelieving joy in that moment, like, wait, I actually did it? By the end of the first month, that landing page had generated $6,000 in revenue. $6,000. For a tiny WordPress jewelry store selling mystical elven rings to people who probably burned sage while they shopped. My 5% cut? $300. And counting. I thought I'd struck gold. I drafted the invoice with steady hands and a hammering heart, typed out a polite, professional message, and hit send. And then, nothing. I waited a day, checked my inbox compulsively, refreshed. Nothing. 3 days, a week. Still nothing. I sent a follow-up. Friendly tone. Hey, just checking in about the invoice I sent over. Silence. I called. Voicemail. I called again. Voicemail again. Meanwhile, and this is the part that will make your blood pressure spike, I still had access to her WordPress dashboard. I could still see the analytics. I could still watch in real time as her store kept selling, as my landing page kept converting. Day after day after day. The sales didn't stop. The ads were still running. The money was still flowing, right into her pocket. And every morning I'd open that dashboard like someone pressing a bruise, knowing it was going to hurt, but somehow unable to stop myself. Weeks passed, then a month, then 2, then 3. 3 months of silence. 3 months of watching a page I built generate revenue for someone who had simply decided I didn't exist anymore. I want you to feel that for a second, because it's not just about money. It's something deeper. It's the feeling of being used, of having your effort treated as disposable, of realizing that someone looked at your work you were proud of, work that performed, and decided the most convenient thing to do was just pretend you weren't there. It hollows you out a little. You start to wonder if maybe you should have pushed harder for something up front, if you were naive, if you were too eager, if you made it too easy to be taken advantage of. And somewhere underneath all that doubt, something quieter starts to harden. A refusal to just accept it. Then, one afternoon, my phone buzzed. A message from her. My site is down. Are you doing this? Please stop. I read it twice. Then I set my phone down, sat back, and I thought very, very carefully. Because here's the truth. I had absolutely nothing to do with her website going down. It was almost certainly just her hosting provider having issues, the kind of thing that happens constantly with cheap shared hosting. But she didn't know that. And she was scared. And for the first time in 3 months, I was the one holding something she desperately wanted. Now, I need to be clear here. I'm not a hacker. I had no ability to take her site down and no intention of threatening her. What I did have was access to her backend, her analytics, and 3 months of being disrespected simmering just beneath the surface. And I had words, which, as a copywriter, happened to be my entire skill set. The challenge was surgical precision. I couldn't just say I took down her site. That would be a lie, and more importantly, it could be used against me. I couldn't make threats. Nothing that could be screenshot and handed to a lawyer. But I could be vague. Strategically, deliberately, perfectly vague. I typed my reply with the careful attention of someone defusing a bomb. Sorry, but I'm not going to talk to you until you pay me what you owe me. I stared at it for a long moment. That was it. That was the whole message. No admission, no threat, just a statement of refusal to engage, delivered at the exact moment she thought I was the reason her livelihood was offline. I hit send. My phone rang almost immediately. I let it ring once, took a breath, answered. She was flustered, words tumbling over each other. What did I want? Was it about the invoice? She'd been meaning to get back to me. Things had been so busy. She was so sorry. I stayed calm, almost unnervingly calm. I told her simply, I still have access to your website. I can see your Google Analytics. I know exactly how much that landing page made, and I want what we agreed on, 5% of every sale it generated. The number I quoted her was just under $1,500, 3 months of accumulated royalties. Silence on the other end. Then, okay, I'll take care of it. We ended the call. My hands were shaking, not from fear, but from that particular cocktail of adrenaline and disbelief you get when something actually works. I sent the invoice. Formal, professional, detailed. Every dollar accounted for. 40 minutes later, I got the wire confirmation. $1,480 in my account. Then came one final message from her. Payment sent. Please enable the website. And I sat there in what I can only describe as the most delicious pause of my entire freelance career, and I typed back. I had nothing to do with your website crashing. You should speak to your hosting provider. Sent. I never heard from her again. And I sat there, genuinely shaking, genuinely laughing, because justice had arrived not through lawyers or arguments or begging. It had arrived through a hosting provider's bad timing, 3 months of patience, and exactly 17 words sent at exactly the right moment. Here's what I took from this. People who ghost freelancers are counting on one thing, that you'll eventually accept the loss and move on. They bank on your powerlessness. Sometimes the universe hands you a window. Sometimes the timing just lines up. And when it does, you don't have to lie. You don't have to threaten. You just have to be precise. She paid me every cent she owed, and she did it willingly. That's not just revenge, that's balance. If this story gave you chills, or even just a deeply satisfying grin, smash that like button right now. It genuinely helps more people find stories like this. And I want to hear from you in the comments. Have you ever been ghosted by a client? Stolen from? Taken advantage of at work? What did you do about it? Subscribe if you haven't already, because we've got a whole vault of stories exactly like this one. People who were underestimated, overlooked, and underpaid until they weren't. See you in the next one.